Hello everyone, I am back and I am about to share how the day went. So, overall thoughts? I thought it was a pretty great day actually. I really enjoyed it. And I'll get to why. So I woke up at around 11. When I got up, I greeted my sister. And then I made the suggestion that I was going to go to the grocery store to pick up some donuts, Entenmann donuts specifically. And I asked my sister if she'd be interested to come with me. She accepted the offer, and we went off on a ride. On the ride, we passed by McDonald's, and when we passed by, my sister was curious if they were still doing their breakfast meal. We looked it up on Google really quickly, and when we passed by, it was around 11:45, so we had just missed the breakfast window. Major bummer. But then that got us to think, we probably could just make our own at home. So when we got into the grocery store and were on our way to pick up the donuts, my sister also wanted to pick up a few things, namely a case of water, 36-pack, and some oat milk. But then we thought, no, why not pick up some ingredients to make homemade McMuffins? Before we did that, though, we wanted to see if there was any pre-made frozen McMuffins available. There was, but it was the turkey patty one. And we both weren't really a fan of that, so we decided to make it fresh instead. But going to the frozen aisle actually was secretly a godsend, because there was a cheap pack of hash browns that were available, frozen hash browns, needing to be reheated in either the oven or the air fryer. So we decided to grab that, and then we grabbed everything else that we needed to make the meal. From the McMuffins that were extra crispy, by the way, to Jimmy Dean hot sausage wrap. It wasn't like pre-sliced sausages. It was actually like a sausage meat patty log, which we got. And we got some cheese slices as well. And overall, yeah, we were pretty ready. We stopped by the soda aisle to see if there was any sodas to get. We decided on getting this off-brand version of Dr. Pepper, specifically Diet Dr. Pepper. We then went to the front end of the store. Oh yeah, and we also got bananas too. Then we went to the front end, and we were waiting in line for an older gentleman to scan all of his food and pay for it. And as we were waiting, we were getting into conversations about the different snacks that were available and how we missed the original Butterfingers because the recipe was changed. It no longer is the Butterfingers that we like anymore. On top of quite a few other snacks that we just were talking about, like off-brand versions of, actual snacks like the off-brand version of Snickers, and we were curious of trying that, and I said I wasn't, and she said she watched a review of a guy going through the off-brands and comparing it with the real thing and saying that the real thing was of course better. Pretty interesting. Eventually when we were done, we went to my car, packed everything away, and we drove off. When we eventually got home, we got to work as a team on making the breakfast. My sister made the egg patties and regular sausage patties. She actually did something pretty cool and creative where she got these heart-shaped cookie cutters, and she said she used to work at McDonald's, and she said they would get these like specific round cookie cutter things to make the egg patty, but she got a heart-shaped one, and another shaped one that I don't know exactly how to describe, but yeah, the eggs were put in there, and one of the yolks was broken, but she was able to mix them a little bit. but not too much to where it still retained the overall egginess. I then preheated a mini convection oven in the back room that we have in the back of our house. And I had it at 400 degrees. I put the hash browns in there for 22 minutes. But then around the 18-minute mark, as I was inspecting them, I noticed they were starting to brown a little bit excessively in terms of, it looks like if I don't do something about it right now, they might get burnt by the time they're supposed to be done. So I asked Google's Gemini what I should do, and Gemini suggested that the best course of action would be to lower the temperature from 425 degrees to 400 degrees, and then lower the temperature of the mini oven from, the time of the oven from 18 minutes down to 12 minutes. I did both of those things, and I also flipped the hash browns, 2 for me, 2 for my sister. And then when they were, then I went to check on my sister. I decided to put 2 McMuffin breads in the toaster and popped them in. I then asked my sister if it'd be all right if I could put the cheese on top of the patties because they were nearing completion. The egg patties were looking really good, so I was really looking forward to it. And she said sure. So I put the cheese on top of the patties, and immediately afterwards, I went to check in on the hash browns, and they were looking like they were coming along pretty good. I just stayed there and monitored them until they were eventually ready to go. I took them out of the convection oven, the mini tiny one that doubles as an air fryer by Cuisinart. I took a bite of the corner of one of them to see if they were a good texture, and to my surprise, they were. They tasted just like the hash brown bites from McDonald's, except even better. They were like more crispy on the outside and more tender on the inside. Exactly what you want from a delicious home-baked good. So I put these things on a separate plate. I brought them in to the inside of the house where my sister was putting the finishing touches by toasting the McMuffin bread on the pan with butter. For putting the assembly of products on, like the mayonnaise, the egg, the sausage, and the cheese, and putting it the top one on top. And then she made me 2. She made herself 1. I gave her 2 hash browns. I gave myself 2 hash browns. And she brewed some coffee for us using the Magnifico Evo machine. We then went into the living room because I suggested to my sister a video for us to watch, and that was a video made by Simeon Jimmy called Vincent the Atheist, where he goes through every single religion known to man and basically reviews each one. But there's like a funny little subplot surrounding the whole video series, where in the beginning of the series, he records a video where he says he's really sad that the whole world seems to be going from atheist to a religion again, and so he decides to go into a freezer for 20 years, and then he only wants to be woken back up if the entire world has converted back to atheism. So he goes into the freezer, then 20 years pass, then the one true God appears in an empty church and is like, whoa, what's going on? Then he senses Vincent's soul. He meets him up. He wakes him up, and then Vincent's like, what's going on? And then the one true God says, I don't know, but you seem like you know what you're doing. I watched one of your videos because you left your phone on the floor before you froze. And I thought your videos were so funny, I wanted you to make more. And then Vincent was like, what? I don't want to do that. And then the one true God's like, you don't really have a choice now. So basically he gives him eternal life on earth along with endlessly regenerating powers for his body, all for the sole purpose of wanting Vincent to make 20,000 videos for the One True God's entertainment. And once he's made 20,000 videos for the One True God, then One True God will offer him the sweet release of death, in his own words. Because Vincent has asked for that. So, yeah, that's pretty much the plot, and it's a pretty funny backdrop to the review series, because they always cut back to it and show the progress of the plot as it goes along, like the One True God trying to find out what happened to all of humanity and why everyone is dead, and Vincent trying to, well, let's just say, get out of the situation. So, pretty funny, pretty interesting. I would recommend if you like dark comedy and also a deep insight into human nature. We watched 2 episodes. One was about Scientology, and the other one was about Christianity. I'm not going to go too deep into these at all, other than the fact that I thought they were hilarious, interesting, and really funny and insightful. And my sisters seem to share a lot of similar feelings. That's as much as I'm going to share, because I would prefer everyone else to watch the videos themselves, because each person would have a unique experience from my own from watching the series, and I'd prefer them to get their own experience rather than me relaying mine back to them on that account. So moving along, my mom called. She said she was 10 minutes away. She said she was very hungry. Me and my sister said we had an extra Egg McMuffin patty with cheese and egg and everything available to her. She said she was really excited about that. So I decided to get started on making some hash browns while my sister prepared the Egg McMuffin while my mom was on her way. So we got to work. When she arrived, we had the food prepared for her, but my mom complained that the patty got a little burnt at the skin, so she had to pull that off. And the hash browns were as crispy as they were when I first made them. Maybe it's the way I made them, where I had them too hot and I lowered the temperature and continued to cook them after that. That made them the way they were. So definitely gonna have to try that again next time I make those. Other than that, though, she said she liked it. And then we all drove off to a store. But before we did, my mom wanted me to shave my face and comb my hair so I wouldn't look all haggard when we left. So I did just that. And it took me a good 30 minutes to shave my face and then comb my hair. But I did get a little damaged, if you couldn't tell right there. I was trying to speed up the process. Really shouldn't have done that. But what are you going to do? When I was ready, and my sister was ready, my mom was ready, we all left in my mom's car, but not before picking up some items that we were going to bring to a Goodwill-style store. So we brought what was essentially just a bunch of books in her car, and we drove off to that location, dropped the books off in the donation bin, and then we drove off to the store we were going to buy all of our products from. As we were doing this, we were listening to a series of songs made by a lady who created the I Will Survive song, who has decided to become a devout Christian and create music that's about her rise back to religion and Christianity. Pretty hoppin' tunes. When we arrived, we walked around the store. We were looking at different products, picked up a few things, need to use the restroom a few times, and we just scoured around, got whatever we could. I eventually did get the idea of wanting to make homemade pizza when I saw some pepperoni. I was like, that would be a fun idea. So we got some marinara sauce made by Raul, and we got some pepperonis, and we were also getting mozzarella cheese. We then left the store with, among many other ingredients, and items and goods. Bought everything. And originally, when we were on our way out, my mom wanted to get cherry sundae ice cream that they have at the end of the store. But then we thought, let's have seized candy instead. So that's exactly what we did. We went off. We went to a nearby seized candy. We ordered what we got. I ended up getting like a marshmallow caramel on top of coffee, chocolate, and two others that I'm forgetting what exactly they were. And we even got a Valentine's candy that box that they were selling for like 25% off that my sister decided to buy for all of us. But we all did split the general box that we all got each of our 4 candies from, which was $7 per person. So yeah, that's like a little more than $1 per candy. It's just kind of crazy. We then left and arrived back home, put everything back in the fridge, and then I suggested that there was a new Y-Files that was available and asked my mom and sister if they were interested in checking that out. They said yes, so we went ahead and we chopped up some of the seized candy chocolate, split it between all of us. I brewed some coffee. My mom wanted some coffee too, so we brewed some for her. And we watched this Y-Files episode. It was Campfire Stories, and it was a collection of Art Bell related stories. The first one was about the Area 51 panicked caller. Now, for those who don't know, I did a video about this specific incident that happened. And the thing with this specific incident is that people say, oh, we never got to know who the real caller's identity was. And the person who came back to say they were just a actor pretending to have fun was really just a double agent who was trying to cover the tracks of what was really going on. But then I ended up asking Grok AI about the whole situation. And I said, hey, so there was this situation on Art Bell, the Area 51 caller, and what exactly was that all about? And then I went on a little paper trail with Grok where it provided links and data, where I ultimately was led to this comic book writer who was recently interviewed. He's not really well known, but he was essentially the guy who did like the voice of the panic caller. And hearing him and putting his voice and saying his name directly and all that pretty much silenced any suspicion that Area 51 employee video was real. I do believe that it was just someone having a lot of fun and, getting into the Art Bell spirit. But there is that one eerie detail, and that's the fact that the the satellite signal was shut off. And that was the only time in the history of Art Bell that ever happened, which does make that whole call a little eerie, despite the fact that I do believe that the person who made that call was just some guy who was having a little bit of fun, But the fact that they said something that might have triggered this station to shut down does still make it kind of creepy. Even if maybe he was just making stuff up, maybe some of the stuff he said would hit a little too close to the truth, and maybe some government agent who listened to Art Bell was like, oh no, he's getting too close to the truth. Shut it down. Like, I don't know. It's entirely possible, or it's simply just an extreme godlike coincidence that just happened. Who knows? All I know is I do believe that it was just someone having fun, and they just so happened to cause the most unexpected blackout in the history of the show that's only ever happened on that one episode. Who could say? The next campfire story was a really fun one that was very involving for me, my mom, and my sister. And the reason why I say that was because in this episode, AJ was talking about their a phone booth that was still in service all the way up until like around 2000 or 2001, somewhere around there, before it was eventually commissioned to get pulled out and shut down. Now, this phone booth that was crafted way out in the middle of nowhere in the Mojave Desert was designed to essentially be a place that miners could call their families when they were working out in mines in the Mojave Desert. But then, after they were done with their job and there was really nothing much to do in that area, they left. But for whatever reason, the company that provided power, energy, and support for that line continued to pay the electricity bill for that phone booth for a really long time, all the way up until 2000 or 2001. And it caused this place to be sort of an urban myth sort of area, where people began growing awareness that this place where this single phone booth in the middle of nowhere exists that for some reason continued to have power keeping it live, where people would just go out of their way to travel hundreds of miles into the vast desert, all just so they could go up to this phone booth that for some reason was still getting service and just make calls. And the funny thing is, the booth would receive calls from people all around the world, and sometimes people would just make calls in the phone booth to speak to people from around that area. And it was something that became a worldwide communal experience, a phenomenon. People would confess things like treat the phone booth like a confession booth, where they wouldn't have to worry about confessing to some rando stranger from another part of the world, because they'd be speaking to them in the middle of nowhere, where it'd be extremely difficult to track who they were. All that you could track is that they were some stranger who decided to travel in the middle of the desert to use a phone booth. So it was a really interesting time, and this was the way like the phone booth was used from I think the early 90s all the way to the early 2000s. But then, I guess the company who was providing power to the phone booth decided that they had enough of supporting it, because they saw it as a really impractical and silly thing to continue to invest in. It's kind of odd it took them so long to realize that, until the early 2000s. So they decided to ultimately just shut the booth down, pull it out of the ground, and just pave over it. And it was like it was never even there in the first place. Very fascinating. And so the number essentially was knocked out as a result. The funny thing was, my sister heard the number, and she tried calling it. And when she called it, a guy picked up, and he was like, yeah, this is my 20th call today. People, when they heard about this booth, they decided to call the first number that showed up on their Google recommended page, and apparently mine's the one. And I've been getting different calls of people trying to see if the phone booth's still up and running all the way up until today. And yeah, the funny thing was, my sister actually did that call before we found out the phone booth was torn out. We paused it because we wanted to know, ooh, are we going to get a call from someone on the phone booth? This is so exciting. So, yeah, we decided to go ahead and try it out, and that's what we got. And yeah, my mom laughed, my sister laughed, we laughed. We thought it was really funny. Turns out that the number that my sister called was a local number that we heard at the beginning of the episode that was recommended on Google for being a local number. But the thing was, as the episode played out, AJ Gentile, host of Y-Files, said the full number out loud in the show, and when I wrote it down, it turns out it was the same number that my sister wrote down. The only difference was the area code was not the local area code that my sister wrote down. It was a different area code that was in another part of the country. So that was the real booth number, not the one my sister did. I think maybe when my sister heard it and popped it in, it was kind of a confusing thing, because I'm pretty sure they said it was that area code, but then they say a different area code at the end of this story. But it was, yeah, interesting. So I tried calling it to see what would happen, and it turns out that somebody ended up buying the number and they, as tribute to what the number used to represent, where you could just call it and find the people in the middle of nowhere in the phone booth contacting you back, someone decided to buy the phone booth number and turn it into a conference style phone connection number, where you could either connect to a conference or connect to the board. And the difference between these two is that the board is where people could leave a pre-recorded message and then send it to the board where people could listen to it, and then they could go to the next message and listen to that too. And the other one was conference, where that was the live one, where if you selected that one, you would immediately be put into contact with another person who just so happened to contact that very number at the exact same time you did, which is pretty trippy when you think about it. So I didn't feel like talking to a stranger live, so I decided to go with the board one, and me, my sister, and my mom decided to sing a song in the message where we left our stamp on there, essentially leaving our mark on this whole phenomenon, which was a lot of fun. And then we went through some of the other pre-recorded messages, and you could tell some of these people were fans of the Y-Files, because someone said "Fear the Crab Cat," and then there was another person who was saying, "Please, for the older people out there, the phone booth was shut down. This is no longer the actual phone booth in the middle of nowhere. This is simply just a line that people can use to recreate the feeling of using the phone booth from back in the day. So please stop thinking that's what this is." So many different interesting and fun characters through these calls. It is such a unique phenomenon that really is fascinating. And yeah, that was that story. It was really cool. I really liked it. Especially the whole extra interactive element about it that made it so much fun to be involved in. And finally, the next story from AJ was the story about a man who was just walking his dog in a forest when his dog ran away from him. He went to get the dog back, only to discover that the dog had been taken out and then later vaporized by what looks like a non-human intelligence that had a triangular craft that was hanging right above him. And when the man saw the non-human entity, which had large almond-shaped eyes and small slit for a mouth and little nose holes and whatnot, classic big head, your classic gray alien, 4 feet tall, no obvious clothing, the man decided to hit the Bing with a stick and ultimately killed the Bing. And when he decided to grab the Bing, instead of taking the creature to a hospital, he believed the creature was already dead. He decided to instead take the creature to his home, where he put the Bing in a freezer instead. And he decided to continue just living his daily life, but as he was doing it, he heard what sounded like telepathic screams that were going straight from his ear canal straight into his brain, where he could hear this Bing yell in pain and anger, or just pain, not anger, about being in the freezer. And they even recorded some video of this Bing, and it seemed like it was still somewhat conscious. Pretty bizarre. And then eventually, apparently, the FBI raided his house, took all documents related to the Bing, took the Bing itself, and then left. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say about this one, other than if the guy really did see this Bing, and if the video is legitimate and not phony, then this is probably one of the more compelling cases of alien technology and Bings being legit. But at the same time, what makes me go, I don't know about that, is in the video it said that he had this little bracelet that helps him communicate with the Bing. And I don't know, when you introduce things like little bracelets or trinkets, it just kind of makes me question your credibility, because just that seems a little too goofy and silly to include, it just seems a little out there for me. I don't know. Am I wrong for thinking that? Maybe. but it just seems kind of weird. Moving along, after that video was done, my sister was talking about these glasses that help you see people's auras and into the spiritual realm. I forget exactly what these glasses were called. We looked a video up explaining the history about them in 4 minutes, and as he was explaining it, I was looking to see if these style glasses were on Amazon. They were, but they were $250, and I thought to myself, I ain't paying $250 for a pair of glasses just to see if I could see into the spirit realm. But, I mean, I guess that's kind of cool that they exist in the first place. Well, after that, I decided to get to work on making the pizza dough. I found a man on YouTube who was a professional pizza chef, and he made a recipe to follow on the internet on how to make this specific style of dough. So I decided to follow it beat for beat, and it was pretty involved, all things considered. You had to pretty much, knead the dough. Okay, so first you had to activate yeast in warm water with salt and sugar. Then you had to throw that into 6 cups of flour, and then you had to knead the flour for like 20 minutes straight. Luckily, I had a kneading bowl, so I didn't have to knead it myself for 20 minutes because that would have taken forever. I could just listen to a podcast on my earphones and just knead it, and check it out every now and then. So that was cool. And once the dough was done and ready, it needed to rest, allowing for the gluten to relax and develop. And then after that, I cut it in half. I formed it into 2 separate balls. One ball I put into the refrigerator to chill for perhaps tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. And the other dough, I decided to use that as the dough for the pizza tonight. I then put that one in another separate bowl where I had that rise for an hour and a half. And then I turned on the oven for 475 degrees. And then, I just listened to a Digital Foundry podcast while waiting for it to rise. And then I decided to spend that time. I remember my sister wanted to show me some 80s music videos, so we watched some. I forget exactly what the name of them were. I couldn't really tell you. I think it was like 8, 9, 7, or something like that. Counting down. Not 100% sure. But she told me she used to watch these videos like growing up back when she discovered YouTube, and these videos caught her eye, and she thought that like the 80s was really cool, fun, magical time. And I will have to agree, from the media I have seen of the 80s, it seemed like a really fun and interesting time to be alive, for sure. Eventually, I asked my sister if she could help me out with making the sauce for the pizza. And basically, we already had the sauce, the tomato sauce, but what we needed now was onions, diced onions, the original recipe called for onions, anchovies, and olive oil. We didn't have any anchovies, so instead we used onions, olive oil, and something else. I think it was called... Oh, yeah. Bits of pepperoni and bits of cooked bacon. So that was chopped up, mixed together. My sister did that. I spent a long time bunching myself up against our oven, trying to get it to the heat it was supposed to be at by pressing it on the oven door for like 2 hours. It was ridiculous. Ultimately, the oven only went up to like 435. We definitely need to get a new oven because it sucks having to stand right next to it for that long just to get that result. So eventually, I formed the pizza dough into the classic circular flat pizza. I put a little bit of sauce around it, mixed with water to help keep the middle moisture but not overly wet. I let it sit for 25 minutes to proof and to expand. Once that was good, We put it into the oven for a good 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes was up, we took it out. We put the, well, it was actually 12 minutes, not 10 minutes. And then after that, the pizza was kind of white looking. Normally I expect brown crust, but we'll take what we can get. We put the sauce on. We put her onion, bacon, and pepperoni mixture on top with the olive oil. And then we put cheese, mozzarella, and another type of cheese I'm forgetting the name of. Feta cheese is what it was. And then we put like all manner of toppings, from onions to mushrooms to olives. They were green olives, not black olives. To jalapenos that came with those olives. They were stuffed olives. And pepperoni. And like colored bell peppers. And then some more cheese on top of that. And then we put it in the oven. It cooked for another 15 minutes. We took it out. We cut it in. And then we served it. And I took my first bite. I actually asked my sister to record taking my first bite. She did actually record me putting the oven in and out of the oven. Or the pizza in and out of the oven, sorry. And I have to say this was a really good pizza. The crust was like perfectly crunchy, but it was also perfectly airy too. And it was like, in my opinion, I feel like the flavor was a lot on the bland side for the crust, but the actual toppings that the crust was presenting was really good. My family friend thought the pizza was delicious. My mom thought the pizza was delicious. And my sister thought the pizza was delicious. I know this because they told me. We then watched a new episode of Pluribus, and this is going to be the last episode of the series for now, because I know they're making a second season. Really interested to see where the story goes from here. But yeah, this episode was essentially about the man who traveled all across America so he could meet with Carol and convince her that these beings are, not out for humanity's best interests. But Carol doesn't want to hear it because she's actually fallen in love with one of the beings who's using this woman as a way of essentially coddling her and getting her ready to transition over. But sadly, Carol doesn't see it that way at all. She actually starts getting with these beings and getting comfortable with them, only to realize that by the end of the episode, the only reason they're doing any of this is so she can join their hive mind, and not because, it's something like a genuine act of love, It's really all just setting her up to be manipulated at the end of the day. So with a heavy heart, Carol decides to go with the Mexican man, and they go begin their plan to save the world. And this was a really fun episode. Also, it was really great acting, really good acting in this episode. I thought that Carol's acting, the lady who did the acting for her when she had to say goodbye to the person that she thought she loved, but turns out she was just being used by, so her feelings were really complex about the whole thing, was really great. I thought that was outstanding and just incredible. And yeah, it makes me excited to see what's in store for these characters in season 2. I'm really hoping that we get some answers on what exactly they're going to do to save the world. It's going to be really interesting. Now, after we're done watching that, I snuggled our black cat, Calmy, that was in my mom's room for a bit. My sister snuggled the black cat too. I watched a cool video with my mom about a guy using molten salt to turn, to be put into molds that were skull-shaped and sword-shaped, and that was really fun and cool. And then finally, after all of that, I decided to listen to a Digital Foundry video while I got ready for bed by taking my vitamins, brushing my teeth, taking out the trash, and then recording this video. So that's pretty much the day in a nutshell. And I have to say, it was a really good day. I really did enjoy it. And I had a lot of fun. I didn't get around to doing anything Brain Jam, so that's another half hour that I have to add on to the other half hour I didn't finish yesterday. So that's so that means half hour didn't do yesterday, half hour didn't do today, and then I have to do another half hour tomorrow, plus the 11 minutes of time that I didn't fully dedicate to the project. So this means that if I want to be back on track with putting a half hour in every day, I'm going to have to put in 3, 6, 9, 101 minutes tomorrow of work on Brain Jam Extra if I want to stay on track. Also, with the line drawing, I didn't do 20 minutes yesterday. I didn't do 20 minutes a day. So that means including the 20 minutes that I am promising myself to do tomorrow, that's a good hour of drawing work to do. I'm not going to do it right now because it's 2:48 in the morning and I am tired and I want to go to sleep. But rest assured, tomorrow I go to work from 3 to 11, so I'll have plenty of time to get most of that done and get caught up with my work by then. So that's going to do it for now. I'm going to go to sleep. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a good night.